Is the Big Ten the best conference in college football? We'll table that debate for right now, but it actually might be a better debate than you might think. Welcome to the Voice of College Football as we deliver our power rankings per conference. Please like, comment, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our aim, that's our goal, that's our mission. All right, let's run through the Big Ten, coming off a huge weekend, but looking forward to possibly the game of the year in the conference at Kinnick Stadium this Saturday. All right, at the bottom position in the Big Ten, this is no debate. Northwestern's been atrocious. The record's not that awful at 2-3, but consider the wins against Ohio University and Indiana State. Then consider how Northwestern has looked against decent opponents. Manhandled by Michigan State at home by 21 points to start the season. The most recent effort or lack thereof was against Nebraska. We're looking at a Northwestern team that finished in the top 10 in the country last year, that won its division, played Ohio State tough in the Big Ten championship game, led at halftime, probably at a top 5 defense in the country last year. Of course, they lost 2 of those players in the first round of the NFL draft, and they are just playing deplorable on the defensive side of the ball. That's surprising. Usually Northwestern, the hallmarks on the defensive side, they typically struggle on offense to try to create explosive plays, dynamic plays. Well, that's the same on the offensive side, but now the defensive side. 427 yards rushing against Nebraska, 657 given up in yardage to the Huskers, losing 56-7. Worst team in the Big Ten. Pat Fitzgerald's Northwestern Wildcats. All right, now to number 13, what we believe to be the worst team of the Big Ten for a while. After that opening weekend win against Nebraska, the only win in the conference in August, that's Illinois' claim to fame. They finally get back in the win column, defeating Charlotte 24-14. So any win right now in the development of this program is a big one, even over Charlotte at home by only 10 points. Chase Brown ran for 257 yards, and Charlotte consider that they did come into the game at 3-1, having defeated Duke, who beat Northwestern. So maybe Illinois is a better football team than we thought. Still putting together those building blocks, run game first and foremost. For Illinois, they've got a date with Wisconsin coming up this weekend, and of course the Badgers struggling, but against much better competition. In the number 12 position, we've got the most disappointing team in the conference. Maybe one of the more disappointing teams in college football, period. I will say that. They are one of the more disappointing teams in college football. Indiana, again, the record not deplorable at 2-3, but they can't beat anyone good. 2 weeks ago against Western Kentucky, they slipped by the Hilltoppers 33-31. Then they went to Penn State, and of course, the team that they faced that really springboarded their season per se last year was a team that shut him down cold, 24-0. Michael Penix at quarterback, not looking like the player he was last year. He looks amazing for a couple throws, and then he looks completely lost. Maybe Jack Tuttle's going to be the next quarterback in play there at Indiana. Disappointing season, blown out by Iowa and Penn State. They put up a nice effort against Cincinnati, had that game within reach with a couple minutes left to play, but lost eventually by 14 points. IU's 2-3, and they're off this week. Time to regroup for Tom Allen and company before they take on Michigan State. The 11th ranked team in the Big Ten right now for us, Wisconsin at 1-3. Talk about disappointing, but much different than Indiana. The competition has been decidedly better. Wisconsin, of course, dominating Penn State in the first half of the game one, but they could not convert in the red zone, and that's been the story all season on the offensive side. Either they've been deplorable on offense and can't get anything done, or they move between the 20s and then kick themselves in the foot, shoot themselves in the foot, I believe is the term, in the red zone and can't get it done. Wisconsin played Penn State tough. That game went down to the wire. Despite the score, they in many ways outplayed Notre Dame, and their defense was outstanding against Notre Dame. 6 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, and held the Irish to 3 yards rushing. But, of course, the offense gave up the pick sixes and everything else, losing 41-13. And then, actually, the Michigan loss was the most decisive one. Graham Mertz, again, did not look good, but What looks even much worse than Graham Mertz is the offensive line. That is typically a given at Wisconsin. We just assume that the offensive line is going to be stout, one of the best in the nation. It's one of the worst in the Big Ten right now. They can't run block. They're not protecting Mertz. It's been a bad offensive line performance by Wisconsin. Graham Mertz showed up for a couple plays and showed the talent that he has at the end of the first half in bringing Wisconsin back to 13-10, but it all fell off the rails in the second half, losing to Michigan by 21. Wisconsin at Illinois, trying to get into the win column in the Big Ten this weekend. At number 10, we've got a team going in the other direction, apparently. Nebraska finally breaking through with a win after playing well on the road at Oklahoma and Michigan State, outplaying Sparty in the second half, not giving up a first down in that game. Maybe Nebraska finally just let out its frustrations, and they let them out on a poor Northwestern, 56-7. That is the most points that Nebraska has scored in a couple of years. Most points in a Big Ten game since I don't know when. Most rushing yards since going back to 2014. 427 rushing yards in this game against Northwestern. They had the option game working as well, if you've noticed. Really working on the option game. Just heard Adrian Martinez talk about how they've been working on that in practice with as many as 7 or 8 different offensive skill players. Most points that Nebraska scored since South Dakota State in 2013. Huskers at 3-3 now, notched their first Big Ten win. And, they've got a challenge on their hands in Lincoln coming up Saturday, but they might be up to it when Michigan comes to town. At number 9, Rutgers. Been brought back down to earth the last 2 weeks, especially this past weekend against Ohio State. So the formula of run heavy, short passes, hang on to the football, possess the football, don't turn it over, and play very sound defense. Will that work for the first 3 weeks? It even worked in theory and even in practice, just not on the scoreboard against Michigan and falling to the Wolverines 20-13. And then they just ran into a buzzsaw against Ohio State. The Buckeyes were on their game and let it go in Piscataway, and Rutgers gave up 45 points just in the first half of play, losing 52-13. So Rutgers falls to 3-2 and to number 9 in our Big Ten power rankings. They've got Michigan State coming up. Interesting game there for the Scarlet Knights. Again, they have not measured up to Michigan, and especially Ohio State. Maybe Michigan State is a good measuring stick for the development of this team. At number 8, the Boilermakers of Purdue. They dominated Minnesota this past weekend on the stat sheet, but could not get it done. They bogged down continually in the red zone and lost this game 20-13 to Minnesota to fall to 3-2. It was a key game. Purdue, Minnesota, Northwestern, those are typically the teams you have to beat. If you're Purdue and you want to make a move in the division, if you want to secure bowl position, got to win that game. They could have been 4-1, should have been 4-1, but they don't get it done. It appears as though they've settled on a quarterback, though, in Aidan O'Connell. He hit on 34 of 52 passes for 371 yards, but Purdue falls to 3-2. Next up for the Boilermakers, well, they're off this week, and then they've got a difficult assignment against the Iowa Hawkeyes. At number 7, the team that beat Purdue, Minnesota. Got to be the most up-and-down team in the Big Ten, especially the last 3 weeks. Went to Colorado when the Buffs were coming off a tough game, good performance against Texas A&M. They ravaged Colorado 30-0, gave up 63 total yards of offense. Then they come home as a 31-point favorite, lose to Bowling Green, and then they go to Purdue on the road and notch P.J. Fleck's first comeback win at Minnesota. First time trailing at halftime that they win under P.J. Fleck at Minnesota. Not necessarily a monumental comeback like they were down 21 points at halftime. It was 13-10, but it was still technically a comeback win for the first time under P.J. Fleck at Minnesota as the Gophers now go to 3-2. They were dominated, as we mentioned, on the stat sheet against the Boilers, 28-12 in first downs. They were outgained by about 150 yards, and Purdue ran 33 more plays than Minnesota, but the Gophers figured out a way to get it done, and they defeat Purdue. They've got a bye week, and then they take on Nebraska, a big game in the Big Ten Western Division. At number 6, a team that, much like Rutgers, may be showing what they're truly worth. And even though the team's getting better, they ran into a rock-solid Iowa team on Friday night, and Maryland not up to the challenges. They fall to 4-1 on the season, losing 51-14, annihilated in this game. And this was kind of the chic upset pick of the weekend. Maryland was only a 3 to 3.5 point underdog in this game at home against a top 5 team in the nation. It looked like with their explosive offense, with possibly Talia Tagovailoa being touted by some as the best quarterback in the Big Ten, maybe taking a shot at knocking out Iowa, but it was anything but. 7 turnovers in this game, and Maryland goes down to defeat. Just were not ready for the big moment, losing this one 51-14. Next up for the Terps, they go to Columbus and take on Ohio State. Next up in our rankings, the Buckeyes at number 5. Ohio State just let it go this past weekend in Piscataway, and we'll see if this was somewhat of an aberration, just a good day. Things fell into their hands. They did have a few things work their way when Greg Schiano called for a fake punt on the first drive of the game, and Ohio State was able to squash that, and then they got a pick 6 just a couple minutes later, and were up 14, nothing like that, but they scored 45 points, and they racked up over 500 yards of total offense. So the Buckeyes maybe break out, and maybe this is what they needed, the tonic that they needed to get the juices going, to get the confidence in full swing. Ohio State now at 4-1 takes on Maryland coming up this week. Now to our top 4 in the Big Ten. Michigan State now 5-0. They stepped out of conference play this past weekend, beat Western Kentucky 48-31, racked up 518 yards of total offense, and Kenneth Walker was back at it with 127 on the ground. Michigan State off to its best start since 2015 when they went to the college football playoff. Take on Rutgers in Piscataway this Saturday. All right, at number 3, playing their most complete game of the season against a quality opponent, the Michigan Wolverines, 5-0. There were many questions about their performances before that because they relied solely on the running game, little through the pass game. Well, Wisconsin did what the Badgers do. They shut down Michigan's run. Michigan turned to the air. They threw for about 260 yards and 3 big touchdowns. Cade McNamara, he came through on the road, Camp Randall Stadium, against a top 5 to 10 defense in the country. Decisive, important win for Michigan here. Now they move on to an interesting date this Saturday night at Lincoln against Nebraska. Michigan at number 3 in our Big Ten power rankings. At number 2, we could have quite the debate between these two teams. I've got them ranked number 3 and number 4 in the country. And the Iowa Hawkeyes I have placed at number 2. Why? Well, we already talked about the win against Maryland. They turned over the Terps 7 times. This is not random when it comes to Iowa football. Turnovers in football are a percentage of them random, luck. For Iowa, they practice this. They've been doing this forever. They are first in the second in the nation under Kirk Ferentz in defensive turnovers. So this has been going on for 20 years. This is Iowa football. They have an elite secondary. They have a great defense. Spencer Petras, this may be the most important performance from Friday night, 21 of 30 for 3 touchdowns. And so here's the differential between Iowa, the number 2 team, and now Penn State, our number 1 team in the Big Ten power rankings. I look at resume. Both teams played Indiana, and they both dominated the Hoosiers. 24-0 for Penn State this past Saturday night. For Iowa, it was 34-6 in the opener. So that's a wash. Other than that, I'm rating the wins for Penn State against Auburn and Wisconsin to be more impressive and against better competition slightly than Iowa defeating Iowa State and then this win against Maryland. Those are the 2 best. If you take the Indiana game and call that a wash, they both dominated Indiana, that the Penn State victories against Auburn and also against Wisconsin, better competition and more impressive than the wins for Iowa against Maryland and against Iowa State. Also, Penn State did not struggle in any way, shape, or form against the other 2 opponents on its schedule out of the group of 5 and the FCS, while Iowa did struggle mightily in this game against Colorado State, only winning by 27-17 after being down at halftime. So Penn State, Iowa, pick your team. It's quite the debate. But I've got Penn State ranked as the number 1 team right now in the Big Ten. But, of course, it's all going to be settled on Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Time at Kinnick Stadium. Penn State, Iowa, game of the year thus far, at least, in the Big Ten. Let's hear your power rankings down below. Let me know what you think about mine. Of course, lock it in here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video, even if you don't agree with me. If you love what we do here in regards to discussion, debate, analysis of college football every day, please like the video. Share these videos out on social media. Not everybody knows that we're here. You've got a sphere of influence, people that you talk to on a daily basis that don't know that we're here talking college football. So please let them know. And we will see you soon right here at the Voice of College Football.